Three, two, one. What's up, you guys? It's me, the Reactor. I'm back again for a new video where I'm going to be discussing Karate Kid Legends. This is my full, in-depth review of the film. So if that sounds good with y'all, then get ready to be excited because that's exactly what we're going to be doing. But a bit of a history before I actually discuss the film. I didn't really know much about what Cobra Kai or Karate Kid was until I actually saw the trailer for this film, and that got me interested about it. So then I'm like, okay, I gotta get back and I gotta watch the originals and then Karate Kid, or the originals and then Cobra Kai. And I wasn't entirely sure, what order I'm supposed to watch everything. So I googled, what came out when, and then it kind of made sense. Because now Cobra Kai is like a super popular thing on Netflix, which I've heard a lot of my friends are watching it. But I'm like, how did this tie in? And when you watch the original Karate Kid, you hear them mention the Cobra Kais. And they're like, okay, maybe there's something here. But then when you watch the original movies and then the show in release order, it all kind of makes sense and fits together like a puzzle. So yeah, I watched the first three. I tried to watch the next Karate Kid and Karate Kid 2010 one with Will Smith's son. I barely could get through those. I tried the 2010 one was fine, but Will Smith's son was just a bit too cringe for me. You should focus on just doing music, I guess. And then I just binge watched Cobra Kai because I really enjoyed that one. And then I was thinking of doing a trailer reaction video for Karate Kid Legends, but that just slipped past me, and then I had other things planned out. So yeah. And before I actually discuss the film, just be aware that my next couple of videos might be discussing the film from the world of John Wick Ballerina and F1. Those are two big movies of June that I want to discuss. So yeah, now let's discuss this film. So my rating, will come at the end, and of course this is a video filled with spoilers, shipping the title as well, so just be aware of that. Now getting to the film itself, it's kind of wishy-washy for me personally. When the early reviews came out, some people are saying it's the worst one of the franchise of all the Karate Kid movies, So I gotta see for myself, how is it? And it's not the worst that I saw, but it clearly isn't the best that I've seen. Sony really mismarketed the heck out of this one. If you've seen the trailer for this film, man, it's a good trailer. But guess what? They showed the best parts of it. I'm not going to blame Sony for that. A lot of movies generally show the best parts of their film in the trailer. It's happened before, and I hate when they do that. I'm show a good amount of it, but save the best of the best for the end. Nah. I mean, they did save some, but well, what's the point after that? The first act-ish is kind of slow. I mean, Lee Fong, our new character, he lives in Beijing, China, and he was learning Kung Fu from his teacher, Mr. Han, played by Jackie Chan, who's goated, of course. He previously taught Will Smith's son in the 2010 Karate Kid remake, even though they did Kung Fu, so it should have been called a Kung Fu Kid, but, where's the creativity in that? Or non-creativity? One or the other, I don't know. So he's been teaching him, and in the beginning of the film, they refer to his mom as the doctor is coming, which is kind of funny, because she is a doctor, but it's not like they referenced it as his mom is coming or something, like Mrs. What's his last name? Fong or Fang? Mrs. Fang is coming. I don't know why they didn't just do that. Maybe it's some sort of reference or something, because she is a doctor, which that was funny. And then he told this little girl to go out and stall her, for some time being, which was pretty funny. So the first act-ish I could get through. They quickly explain why they're leaving to New York for a fresh start, to get away from all this fighting and this Kung Fu stuff, for a brand new life in New York, clean slate. She is going to be working there as a doctor, and he's going to be going to school and, studying and all that jazz, right? So far, I'm like, okay, we're kind of speeding through this, that's fine. And a couple of transitions were coming along the way, and that's one of my main points I'll get to a bit later. So when he's at New York, he said, there's a pizza place. He told his mom, I'm going to go get some pizza. He arrives there, and then he's like, yo, do y'all have some stuffed crust pizza? I mean, it is pretty good. And then I think he's the main store owner, manager, whatever, is like, yeah, you want stuffed crust pizza, you gotta go like super far away, like long drive to get there. And then he's like, no, I just took like an 18-hour flight from Beijing. I'm super tired here, I don't want to go anywhere that's far. Just make me something here. And then this girl named Mia comes in and she's like, I'm sorry about my dad and all these people who are making fun of you. Let me get you whatever you want. And he orders a pepperoni pizza. So far, so good. But then they're like, where's the excitement, We need to introduce a bully. And that's kind of one of my main issues with this film. It's kind of like a remake of the first one, though not exactly. It's like, let's make the original Karate Kid from 1984, but modernize the heck out of it. I'm saying what's popular on TikTok. Transitions. Why are there so many transitions in this thing, man? Like, every time there's a fight scene about to happen, we need to cut to a transition. New location, let's do a transition there. Like, what kind of video editing software is this? Like, we don't need a transition. We don't. I don't think I've seen a movie with this many transitions before. Like, what is going on? It's fine at first, but towards the end, oh boy. It's like they're just doing it like for fun. Like, why? I don't care. I used to watch this show on Nickelodeon called Game Shakers. They would kind of do a similar thing. Like, yeah, it's New York and all, but man, so many transitions. Now, after Mia and Lee sort of become friends, there's that going on. But then, of course, again, like the original, how do we copy or modernize it? We need a bully. The bully becomes Connor. And honestly, I could care less about Connor. He just doesn't have the style that Johnny had in the original, or I guess the bully from the 2010 one. I forgot his name. They both had some sort of uniqueness to them, some sort of like, okay, I can kind of understand them. But this one is he's just there, and everything is feeling rushed and out of place. Like, why are we doing this again, They didn't really try to bring anything new to this film, which I really feel like they could have, The whole marketing idea was, let's bring in Jackie Chan's character, Mr. Han, and Ralph Macchio as Daniel LaRusso. Let's combine the two, and that's what they do, but that's not exactly what this is about. So the first half-ish part of the film is where he has to train Mia's father Kung Fu, because he has like a boxing tournament going on, and I guess Kung Fu can help with that. And I think if he wins, he'll get a lot of money, and that'll help him because he's in debt from like loan sharks who are coming after him. I'm not entirely sure why he's in danger from them. I don't remember that part, but he is. And so he has to train him. At first, he thinks it's a crazy idea, and his mom clearly told him, it's a new fresh start, so no more fighting. We're done with that. But then the dad's like, no. Loophole. I'm going to be fighting. You're not. You just have to train me. But there's a lot of pressure in this, right? Because if he gets in the ring, suddenly we're doing a boxing thing all of a sudden. And Mia's like, if my dad gets hurt, it's on you. And that sort of pressure is being felt up again, because then we flash back to this whole thing going on with his brother, which of course was needed, because without that, where would the excitement be in this film, And I think that was one of the most extreme things of any Karate Kid film we've seen. And I think they brought a nice way to tie that in, where, his brother also taught him some Kung Fu moves. He was also Mr. Han's student, and they had like a tournament going on. He won the tournament, of course. And afterwards, though, the people who lost were super mad. They wanted revenge. One guy pulled a knife on him, and Lee was completely frozen, unable to do anything. And, to me, that was like, okay, that happened, cool, and that trauma's sort of still with him, And I think so far this part of the film I've got. It's cool, the pacing is fine-ish, I'm on board. As we progress, eventually he agrees to train him, but, in a very certain manner. So, he teaches him things like the 1-inch punch, stuff like that. Super cool, kind of not what you're expecting from this movie, I'm sure, but that is kind of what it is about, So the first couple of minutes are devoted to that. And also in the background of all this is Connor's appearing way more often, and he's sort of, teasing Lee. I don't know why, just because he's with Mia. Is that the only reason? And he gets frustrated, so he decides to push my boy Connor Day, and then he's like, all right, I'm angry now. He's just trying to look an excuse for them to fight each other, trying to rile him up, I guess, get a rise out of him, but it's wishy-washy, as I said earlier. And of course, he beats him because he doesn't know karate, even though he does know kung fu. It's not enough, or maybe he was just holding back, one or the other, really. But after this sort of inciting incident happens, the film kind of pushes forward a bit more. The pacing, increases by like 50% each time something crazy tends to happen. Afterwards, of course, Mia's dad, I forgot his name. I don't remember it. But he has to, he goes for the fight against some guy. And I think it was just one fight he had to do in order to win. Or maybe there was another fight off. I'm not entirely sure. But he steps into the ring and the fight happens. And he's doing well towards the end. Of course, the first half he's not doing so well. But the second half, the hero ends up doing better, as we've seen before. And as all that is happening, the loan shark people are like, it's fine if we disqualify, let's just beat him up. I don't know why they hate him that much, but that's what they tell the boxer guy to do, and he does that. He does end up getting disqualified, but Mia's father is in a pretty rough shape, unable to get up, and Lee being Lee, he's scared because he doesn't want to go and face what happened again, what happened to his older brother. So he was scared, but eventually tells his mom what happened, and because she's pretty good at being a doctor, I guess she saves him. A lot of people are saying Ming Na Wen, who is goated, by the way, love her, was not in this film too much, but her presence was constantly felt in the background. I knew she'd be there as a supporting character, and I think she did that perfectly. So these characters I'm fine with. It's just the writing is sort of holding back the film, to a higher standard, which it totally could have been. So yeah. What else? What else happened in this thingamajig? Let's see here. While all this is going on, of course, the Five Boroughs tournament is also along the way. So Connor's probably training off screen. Maybe his presence is being acknowledged and whatnot. But I feel like this movie is quick to address everything, like the Five Borough tournament, Connor as the bully, the inciting incident, people getting injured. Quick, just rushing through these plot points. And that brings me to my another issue. No time to breathe in this thing. It just starts and ends. Like, it literally just feels like the movie just starts and it ends. And again, pacing is a big problem I'm seeing most movies have now. Now, this movie was only like an hour and 30-ish long. It could have been longer, and I would have been fine. I don't know why they decided to do that. Maybe they just wanted to show the exciting parts, but by giving room to breathe and slowing down the pacing, we're able to enjoy certain parts of the film more. Yes, we want the inciting incident and all the cool stuff, but it needs to feel earned. It needs to feel respected, after we've done a lot of training, gone through the trials and tribulations, and a lot of stuff has happened, and that just doesn't happen. There's not a lot of character development, build-up, motivation. It's there, but it's half-baked, and that's the problem with this film. Like, the first three Karate Kid movies all felt earned, developed, and respected in their own right. This one is struggling to get that, and it feels uninspired at times, where Sony was probably thinking, let's just get this thing done just cause, and move on from there. Again, like I said, the trailer really does show us the best parts of the film, because they're like, all right, that's what you want to see. And the movie does try to represent that, but by not having enough time to breathe, it makes the cool scenes seem less cool, if that makes sense. Like, I loved the first half-ish of the movie I mentioned earlier, where he's training Mia's father, some skilled kung fu and stuff, so he can get back to like his prime boxing days, I guess, and fight. And again, I think most people agree that part was interesting. Definitely unexpected, but one of the cooler parts, because the pacing was slower and it just seemed cool to watch. And I think that's really what we're all here for, Like, if that was just the entire film, it probably wouldn't work. They would need to remarket that. I would honestly be entirely sold on that. My rating would be a lot higher. Because there were fewer transitions during this part of the film. Connor was completely redundant. We didn't even need him for this. And there's still a good amount of action. And for me, tick. I'm on board. But no, that does not happen. The overarching plot at first is kind of slow, but then it builds up. I think a lot of us can agree this film feels like two different ideas coming together and being rushed. Another point, you can see how I haven't mentioned Daniel LaRusso yet. It's because he is barely in this film and his presence is very minimalized, but I'll get to that later. Now, of course, while all this is happening, Mia's father in the hospital, he is recovering, which is good. And of course, Lee feels horrible as ever, so he decides to, quit all the fighting and stuff and just go live a quiet life. But no, something needs to happen, and again, people are feeling like they're getting bored. So as soon as Lee doesn't pick up Mr. Han's phone call, he just arrives in New York right away. Wow, that was quick. Again, super rushed. He's there already, and then he's like, he goes and he visits Mia's father, and then they're there at the hospital, and as I said, he's recovering, and they're like, all right, what can we do to make the situation better, because his restaurant might be in danger. So Mr. Han is like, all right, we got to get you in that 5 burst tournament, you have to win, and only then can things be right again, and I can kind of see the motivation for him fighting to fix things. It just felt so quick. Like, okay, now he's fighting again. Now, of course, he has to convince his mom, but that's happening off screen. Because instead of that whole part being in one scene, which I think would have worked better, they're like, nah, let's just show him fighting and cut back to the scene again where he's having the conversation with Lee's mom about why he should continue to fight. So I'm like, I can kind of get why, but Sony, listen. We're not toddlers or little kids who need constant action. As someone who loves action, this is not the right way to do it, okay? We need build-up. We need, a proper, story going before we can get to all of this. And a lot of these characters are just half-baked, honestly, Jackie Chan probably delivered a better performance in his film than in this one. While I couldn't get through the cringiness that it was, he looked awesome in that film. And I think him as a kung fu teacher would have been amazing. This one tries to pay homage to that, but fails on some levels. Again, the first couple of scenes we saw him was amazing, but that's honestly it, We're at his little dojo, I guess, where he's teaching kung fu. Now, later on, Mr. Han is like, I need to go talk to my friends, so he goes to Miyagi-Do place where Ralph Macchio's, what's his name? Daniel LaRusso is located at. And then there's this whole thing about the connection between Kung Fu and karate, about how they're related. And Mr. Han mentions he knew Mr. Miyagi, though I doubt that, because Mr. Han is only 8 years older than Daniel LaRusso's Ralph Macchio in real life. So whatever, they tried to establish a connection that never really was there for entertaining the audience, I guess, which is fine. I'll let that slide. And he tries to convince Daniel to go to New York to train one of his students. At first he says no, but come on, he has to be on board eventually. And it feels like they just did this to drive some sort of tension, but I really would have loved to see, Daniel have a moment or something, or talk to Miyagi, one of his photos or something. And, I thought that would have been pretty cool. So I wish there had been more of the Cobra Kai original Karate Kid movie setup in this one. That linkage, it just felt kind of weak, and they did it, as lazy as possible, but just enough to make it work, if that makes sense. Because then, while Mr. Han is training Lee, preparing for the 5 burst tournament, eventually, of course, Daniel has to show up to teach him karate moves as well. And a lot of people are saying this, that he already knows kung fu, so of course he can probably learn karate in 1 week. It's not the craziest thing in the world. He knows how to fight, he just needs to learn things, and he has the physique, he has the age, everything is to his advantage, he just needs to train for it. So of course it didn't seem as exciting as wax on, wax off when Daniel was learning it, because he was just a scrumpy little kid, living in Reseda, who, was a bit of a hothead. But that was perfect for someone like Mr. Miyagi to mentor him in the best way possible. by making him understand the peace and defensiveness nature that is Miyagi-Do, not only teaching him some fighting skills of karate, but also how to be a better person and live a proper lifestyle. And the messages from the first movies were just amazing, in my opinion. But in this one, man, everything was rushed. Like, 2 branches, 1 tree, said over and over again. Like, I get that there's some sort of linkage going on here, but other than that, there wasn't anything to really be fond of. Like, okay, yes. Honestly, if they just kept the surprise of, like, Ralph Macchio in this film, I think that would have made a lot more people excited. Kind of like Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, they barely showed up. Actually, I think they were in the film, like, almost as long as Daniel was. Probably even more. His appearance, I'd say, was more of a cameo than, like, an actual, like, character. Of course, he does serve some purpose, and he does have some of the highlight scenes of the film, but other than that, what else can I say? The other thing is songs. There are a good amount of songs during this part of the film where the training montage is happening. He has to learn karate in a week, and they play a lot of songs people have said that are on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels and all those things, so you may have heard of them beforehand. And then again, this is where the transitions start to increase again. Why are there so many transitions? And then we also cut back to the conversation Han is having with Lee's mother about why he should continue to fight. So all this is sort of happening, or all these scenes are sort of playing at the same time while Connor is out there training in the background, and I could honestly care less for Connor Sensei. Like, it's just happening, but whatever. Like, I could care way less. His sensei was way less interesting than Kreese, or Terry Silver, or Mr. Miyagi, or literally, I think, any of the senseis. His sensei was probably one of the weakest. Again, I don't know why this film is trying so hard to be modern. It can be modern, honestly, without having to be this lazy of a film. And it doesn't really do anything to get me like, yes, this is what I'm waiting for. Everything that I want happens in it. There is a kind of a cool scene where they're trying to build a way to trap the tiger that is Connor, you know, by trying to outsmart him, which I thought was pretty cool. But other than that one thing, there was nothing I was really rooting for. Like, I'm like, alright, that's probably going to happen towards the end of the film. That's something I can look out for. But other than that, the stakes just aren't there for me as much. Like, I'm like, sure, he's going to learn karate, he'll get better, and everything will be fine. I wasn't probably as worried for him as I was maybe about Will Smith's son, because, again, he didn't know much about fighting either. He didn't know Kung Fu too well, so we had to kind of learn everything from scratch. With Lee's journey, again, the actor, Ben Wang, probably gave a pretty good performance, but the writing for this one is really what's holding these characters back from being the best versions of themselves as possible. You know, it's like, again, an easy, quick cash grab built on nostalgia, and that's pretty much what it is. I would try to argue against it if there was something this film was really offering to us, but it's not. So far, nothing awesome is really happening. They're just doing things that are easy to do. They're not taking any risks. They're playing this movie too safe, you know, and the threat isn't there. The villain isn't super intimidating. So you're just there watching, like, okay, this is happening. This is happening. This is happening. It doesn't do anything wrong, but by being a film like this, we need some sort of excitement, you know? It's just like, ooh, Karate Kid, Legends. Let's brand it like that. Let's market it like that. And that'll get people in the theater. And while it probably did work, man. And we still have to discuss the third act, which we'll get to in a bit. So, again, he's training. A lot of montages here are happening. Eventually, as I said earlier, Daniel gives in. He decides to help train Lee. And then him and Mr. Han, both get into like a little bit of arguments as to how he should be learning his skills, how he should be improving, what he should be doing when he's actually fighting. So, you know, there's sort of the argument between what's truly better. The history and culture of karate, that's Miyagi-Do, or the Kung Fu that's the ancient Chinese way, you know. So there's a lot of this back and forth stuff happening, and they're just, you know, they're tossing Lee on the floor like he's some sort of beanbag, I guess. It's insane, you know. So yeah, all this is sort of happening at the same time, and I can truly feel that, Ralph Macchio honestly delivered the best form performance that he could with the limited screen time that he had, but you could honestly tell he probably cared way more for Cobra Kai or stuff like that. That just felt like a easy, quick cash grab side thing for him. Again, he probably delivered the best performance that he could for like the few limited number of days he was actually on set. Other than that, not much else to say, I guess. So again, all this is happening. Connor's training in the background, and then eventually the mother is sort of on board for Lee to continue fighting, and I guess him and Mia sort of do make up after what happened to her father, and all this is sort of going on. And that's when the fighting begins and when we really lean into the third act of the film, where he sort of fights the first couple of people, and he gets his nickname Stuffed Crust, because again, that's the pizza that he ordered at the beginning of the film. I don't know how they let that nickname slide, but whatever. And he begins fighting, and man, the transitions increase, and they have a whole animation and explanation about how points are going to be scored, how it's going to work out, which I guess it's fine, but they continue repeating that. And anytime someone scores a point or a KO, knockdown, whatever happens, body shot, whatever, they do a freeze frame on pretty much every single point won. And I'm like, why do we need to do this? You can announce it, sure, but they're just going way too in depth of it. Like it's a video game you're playing on your phone or something. Again, trying to make it way too modern and way too appealing for the kids. Why are we doing this? And why is there so much stuff going on in the background? Too much noise, too many transitions. It's taking away from the epicness of the scene that could have just been if it was entirely quiet. Kind of like in Karate Kid 2 where Daniel was fighting Chosen. That scene was pretty quiet in my opinion. I mean, it was a fight to the death, but, something as, exciting and as intense as that is kind of feeling cheapened by this lazy, cheesy scene happening right in front of us. And they skipped through a bunch of fight scenes, which I guess it's fine. It was referenced that they would be doing that, but by skipping through some of the stuff and breezing through the fight scenes, it's making them a lot less interesting. And then, of course, him and Connor, of course, are probably going to have to win a lot of fights so they can battle each other at the end of the film, I guess. And before that happens, they're continuing to train, and the training montage, in my opinion, is fine. I don't hate it. I enjoyed it for what it was. I wouldn't say I loved it, but it was okay from what we've been, in the middle. The second act was really keeping us away from. So the first act was pretty solid. Second act brought it down a bit, but the third act tried to bring it back up again. That's kind of what I'd say happened. And then, of course, he's training. Lee's training with his instructors, Mr. Han and Sensei Daniel LaRusso. So that's going on. And, what can I say? I mean, he's learning, I guess. I mean, he's shown skills beforehand, so picking up karate in a week wasn't too hard. And then, of course, the fight happens between him and Connor, and I guess everyone, all the main good people are on Lee's corner. They're there to support him. His mother is there, Mia's there, of course. His instructors are also there. And of course a little fight happens beforehand where Daniel LaRusso and Han have to fight some people off, which that was a quick, cool little scene. Again, some of that was shown in the trailer as well. So eventually, after all of this occurs, they both eventually get to the final fight, and he has to fight Connor, and Connor is winning by a couple of points again. A lot more freeze frames, a lot of stuff is being told to us in the background, which we could easily deduce. So all that is happening, and Connor's eventually just pushing the referee around. Shouldn't that be an automatic disqualification just for that? I don't think you should be able to push the ref around during a tournament like this. That shouldn't really be allowed, but whatever, it happens. They let it slide, I guess. Connor remains to be determined to win, and of course his instructor, I could care less about him, as I mentioned earlier. Connor does have the lead, I think by 4 points, but then Lee starts to sort of make a comeback, with his moves and his skills that his brother taught, Mr. Han taught him, and Daniel LaRusso taught him. So he's putting them all together and he's becoming a better fighter, and he's sort of able to score some points against Conor. So that's continuing to happen in that part of the film. And again, the fight's being rushed pretty quickly. Eventually it does become tied, but then he does the tiger trap thing, I guess, against him, because Conor's expecting one thing, so he does have a counter ready for it, but then he tricks him, and then he wins that fight. And then it's over, he wins, the score becomes 8-7, and that's about that, I guess. The pizza shop can continue to live onwards. I guess everything is fixed in a certain way, who cares? And all the characters, I guess, go back to their normal place where they belong. People do cheer Leon, but that was super rushed, and of course that was going to happen. And Daniel ends up going back to California in the Valley where he resides, and he gets pizza shipped to him all the way from New York. And I like how there's a note on the box saying how much he owes for getting the pizza delivered there. It's crazy, it's insane. And eventually we do see Johnny Lawrence. He's talking to him about how good pizza from New York is. I want to actually guys have a little discussion about this in the comments below. How good do you think New York pizza really is? Is it all it's hyped up to be, or, you know, I mean, I've heard because of the water I think they used to like cook stuff in New York is pretty good, so maybe that's why the pizza tastes better, or is it something else? Just let me know in the comments below. So he's talking to him, which is a nice little tease. This movie in no way ruins Cobra Kai or any of the original movies for me. It's just bland on its own. So, you know, nice little tie-in post-credit scene there, where we see William Zabka return for this film, and they sort of have a little discussion about creating their own pizza place called Miyagi Dough. And instead of it being D-O, it's D-O-U-G-H, like how we spell dough for pizza dough. It's a nice little funny moment about creating their own pizza place for their next business idea, you know, like Miyagi Dough, or, you know, how Cobra Kai is strike first strike, hard no mercy. Johnny ends up going slice first slice, hard no anchovies. And that was pretty funny when he's just coming up with ideas for a Miyagi-Do pizza place. And I think that's about that. The film ends right about there, and I've discussed some of the main issues I had with it, so that's about that. As for a rating, I will be giving this a 6 out of 10. It is mid, super mid. I think Venom 3 the same rating. This is basically like Venom 3. Sony's made another film for another franchise, you know, like that, where man, oh man, I don't know what team worked on this one, but there are definitely some glaring issues with this one. You're able to get by everything after a certain point in time, but other than that, I don't know what else much to say. Some people are saying wait for it to come on streaming or watch it in theaters. I was thinking of waiting for streaming, but I'm like, you know what? I might as well watch it in theaters. What's the harm, you know? So I did end up doing just that. So I saw the film, and yeah, and then I came back here and made this video for you guys. So I think that's about that, as I would say. Film ends about there, and I pretty much discussed the main issues I had. So many transitions, way too quick, not enough breathing room. Characters are half-baked, so you can kind of see how it would get a 6 out of 10. Other than that, I don't think I have too much to discuss. As I said, future videos are coming along the way. And as in that, let me know what you thought about Karate Kid Legends in the comments below. If you have seen it, or if you're planning on seeing it, or whatever your thoughts and opinions are about it. I'm going to end the video right around here. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting film for sure. I mean, it's definitely something you could just have for like a time pass, I guess. An hour and 30 minutes. It'll go by pretty quickly before you know what you know, and it'll end right about there. Yeah, so my rating is lower than Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, because I feel like that film was just better. Same with Dead Reckoning. I definitely say both those films are better in their respective aspect. This one just sort of failed to stick the landing that it needed. It didn't ruin anything, but the trailer hope set me here, the audience hope set me here, and I was sort of left kind of, you know, stuck towards the middle for my rating. So you can kind of see how I felt after I watched it, and I'm like, okay, I see what this film was trying to offer and what it was trying to do, but it just didn't meet the expectations which I had, or the full potential that this film had, which could have made it a lot better. You know, like trying to make it way too modern, trying way too hard to appeal to kids, the younger audience and fan base. It's just not really needed. So yeah, that's about it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to end the video right about here. I think I've touched upon everything. So yeah, take care, you guys. Eagle vs. Reactor is out, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.